Welcome to the Alameda County Pod Training Module for the Logistics section. As a member of the logistics team at a point of dispensing site, you have an important role in making the pod successful. Nothing happens in the pod without logistics getting there first. The logistics team is made up of two primary subgroups, supply and services. Since many logistics functions must be carried out simultaneously, the logistics section chief will need to delegate a good deal of authority. The supply group is tasked with keeping the rest of the pod sections working by staying ahead of them with material supplies. The services group has roughly the same task as it applies to people and services. Both groups are essential in every area of the pod to set up and staff physical workstations and keep them functioning. The logistics supply group has three basic units: general supplies, pharmaceutical supplies, and runners who transport the supplies. Pharmaceutical supplies require special treatment. Medications need to be tracked closely to comply with pharmacy laws and practices. Many of them also require refrigeration or temperature control. And of course, in an emergency, medications become even more valuable and require a certain amount of security. Since the pod revolves around dispensing medication, managing pharmaceutical supplies is a critical responsibility. The pod can continue to fulfill its mission if it temporarily runs low on any other supply, but not medication. The general supplies group is in charge of all other materials that make the pod work. They must receive, store, and stage a wide variety of supplies. Experts in inventory management are good people to have in the supplies group. The runners, of course, have the responsibility of safely getting the supplies from the staging area to the pod units. The other group in logistics is the services group, providing support in four areas: personnel, communications and IT, food service, and maintenance. The logistics personnel unit handles all staffing needs in coordination with planning. This may include checking staff in and out. As staff arrives, they'll be asked to complete a volunteer registration form. Based on their skills and credentials, the personnel unit leader will assign staff their positions. Once people are assigned, they're given a vest, name tag, and job action sheet. The personnel unit also handles training and ensures completion of paperwork, such as the disaster service worker documentation. Future shift staffing needs and demobilization should be coordinated with both planning and command. The communications and IT unit has the responsibility of setting up and making sure that pod communications and computer equipment are in place and functioning. This probably means a lot of batteries and recharging, as well as hardware, software, and connection troubleshooting. Communication is essential and not always easy to maintain. Fortunately, there are many communication options typically available, and the communications unit should make sure they always have a plan B. And unlike expendable supplies that make up much of the supply team's inventory, communications equipment needs to be signed out and returned. The food service unit has responsibility for the nutritional needs of the staff. Food and water breaks must be coordinated with the city EOC, American Red Cross, or other agencies contracted to provide food and beverages. The maintenance unit takes care of facility maintenance and housekeeping, and, depending on the length of the emergency, may be one of the most important services. Like all other units, logistics needs to keep an ICS Form 214 unit log. ICS Message Form 213 will also become particularly familiar, because that's how other units will communicate their requests, most of which will probably come to logistics. Logistics will also need to maintain inventories and receipts. Just as planning and operations go together, finance is the record-keeping side of logistics. All inventory lists and receipts will need to be passed to the finance section. In addition to the obvious areas covered by supplies and services, the logistics section is also responsible for first aid. First aid kits fall under the supply group, while first aid providers fall under the services group. Ambulances or other transports from the pod to clinics, hospitals, or other treatment sites are logistics responsibilities. Depending on the need, the logistics team might need to appoint a transport officer to oversee this. Pod security will be provided by law enforcement, who'll coordinate directly with pod command staff. If an ICS emergency required supplementing the police with private security, acquiring security guards would fall under the logistics services group. When the demobilization order comes to close down the pod, logistics will supervise the breakdown and repacking of all equipment and supplies. Logistics is then in charge of transporting and returning all equipment and supplies to their original readiness. And before the doors are closed, it's the logistics team who ensures that the facility is cleaned and returned to pre-event conditions. From the moment the decision is made to start a pod until the facility is returned to its pre-event status, the logistics team is working. The pod depends on you, and your continued good humor as well as service impacts everyone. Thanks for your extra effort. This pod video training series is brought to you by the Alameda County Public Health Department, Office of Public Health Emergency Preparedness, in collaboration with Applied Creative Training, Inc.